Yo, let's talk about marijuana addiction. All right. So, when, like in the early 2000s, 1990s, stuff like that, it was said that marijuana wasn't addicted. Well, it was also a very different strength back then, different concentration from what is available today. Now, I'm down in Florida. We have medical. Everywhere has medical, but some places have recreational. So it's all like been very potent, been made to be very potent, and it's a different kind of high, and it is very addicting. It can be very addicting. There's actually studies that show that it can trigger similar synaptic receptors as opiates do. Um, Therefore, it can be concluded that it can cause a milder form of opiate addiction, but marijuana is definitely addicting within itself. Now, the longer you smoke, the more addicting and the more addicting ability that it has. And this is because I know a little bit of irony right there. But this is because uh, marijuana essentially teaches your body how to maneuver the levers in your brain to trigger certain perceptions and emotions to get you to stimulate the chemical reward system again. And the brain is wired to want to minimize energy utilization so it can, therefore it wants to find the easiest way to get what it wants, and the easiest way to stimulate the chemical reward systems of the brain is drugs. However, it's also the most unhealthy way. But the brain wants, a big part of what runs the human being is the chemical reward system. We have consciousness to override the chemical reward system and kind of maintain a supervisory, organizational, and coordination role in the architecture of the consciousness and the interaction between the consciousness and the brain, because we're actually four parts, three parts physiologically based. So we have the body, the brain, the consciousness, and then the fourth part is purpose. But we have to consciously decide on a purpose. So that's out. So when we consciously decide on a purpose, that is the other half of us being human. The first half of us being human is consciousness. Now, animals probably have some sort of consciousness, but not to the extent that ours is able to coordinate the intelligence that we have. Because animals have intelligence too, it's just very uncoordinated. And it's very, aligned with their survival. Ours, on the other hand, is aligned with our survival, but more, because we have a consciousness. Consciousness is to control the chemical reward system so we don't just basically stimulate ourselves to death. That's one of the main roles of the consciousness. And purpose helps balance this because human being wants to be balanced, and the body and the brain act as the complete human physiological, and then the brain has gray matter, which is the physiological base of consciousness. And so the consciousness, our ability of consciousness, like I said, animals probably have some sort of consciousness, but our ability and intellectual level of consciousness can override the chemical reward system, and is also responsible for the complex nature of the human being and our civilization and our society at all levels, and the individual at all levels. However, a lot of levels are automated within the body and some of the brain, and the brain tries to automate as much as it can. And that's why weed is so addicting and so dangerous. Marijuana is so very addicting and dangerous because it is so subtle. It subtly teaches the body how to gain control over the consciousness. And when the body gains control over the consciousness, it knows how to, and the brain, the body and the brain gain control over the consciousness, and it's known how to maneuver physiological feelings. Feelings are just indicators of action, but in the case of drug-seeking behavior, they definitely shouldn't be listened to. However, because when you have an addiction, the body and brain tries to maneuver you towards that addiction as much as it can. Now, with other drugs, it's not as connected as it is with weed, because weed over time, marijuana, the effects of marijuana over time acts very subtly. All right, so where was I? Anyhow, yeah, so the longer you use marijuana, the harder it is to break the addiction from marijuana, because it knows, the body and brain has learned how to either either enhance certain feelings, certain behaviors towards that are most likely to result in a certain action, which will lead towards the consumption of whatever drug the addiction is. Like I was saying, the effects of marijuana happen so subtly over time that you really don't even notice them, but it happens in all its drug-seeking behavior. But marijuana and hallucinogenic drugs, which marijuana is mildly hallucinogenic, but cause, all of them have this effect one way or another, but marijuana is so subtle